And tipping's been a part of North American culture for generations. And now and then we hear of some movement or another calling for an end to the practice. But it's never really would go anywhere. Something's changed in the last few years, though. I mean, tipping has expanded into non-traditional industries, and the amounts being asked are growing. And consumers, they're starting to feel picked clean, and they're right. I mean, prices for everything are rising, and we can't afford to top up every purchase price for a product with a 15 to 25% tip. It's one thing to leave a tip for a server after spending an hour or two at a restaurant, quite another to expect a tip for a retail purchase. Now, I'm going to offer a recent and somewhat embarrassing personal example. This last week, I went to a specialty bakery in Calgary to buy some keto diet items. I won't bother saying which bakery. There's a few of them around there. This bakery, though, had signs plastered on their outside door and all over their walls, bragging of how they're a living wage employer. Again, whatever. I shrugged and entered. I mean, it's their business. What they want to pay their employees is up to them. I quickly, of course, got to see what comes with a living wage when I picked up a loaf of bread and took it to the counter and was charged an eye-popping $16. Now, I knew keto was going to be expensive, but holy crap. I guess it's because they're paying every retail clerk $20 an hour or $22 or whatever they're determining a living wage is these days. Either way, I gulped, but decided to purchase the bread and get the hell out of there anyways. That's the first embarrassment. I should have just stopped my purchase when I saw the price. When I was handed the payment pad, though, then the all too common prompts for tips were on the screen, with the lowest of them being 15%. I mean, what the hell did the bored kid sitting behind the counter do to earn a tip? Thought, I'll show him. I chose the manual option and only left a $1 tip. Yeah, that's the second embarrassment. If it bothered me, why did I tip at all? We are so conditioned to tip. I felt almost shamed into leaving at least a little something. And it's a ridiculous notion, and I should know better. I hope I learned something there. Now, businesses that didn't traditionally command tips in the past have been using the option of those payment pads to try and supplement their staff wages with it. It helps them reduce a little of the sticker shock, I guess, with customers as the inflation forces them to raise prices too, but it's a disingenuous way to go about it. And those payment machines make it easy to slip the tips in as an option without actually asking for them. I even heard of somebody being prompted for a tip for an item they ordered online. I mean, you're just talking to a computer service at that point. It's getting ridiculous. Tipping needs to be reined in, but I don't want to see it eliminated, as some people have called for. It's just crept into the wrong businesses, and consumers need to stop indulging them. And yes, I'm guilty of that. I did it. In some service-based industries, though, tipping should remain. I mean, I look at tipping as something that should be considered if the person has had extended direct experience with the service provider. And in that, I mean with a few examples, like in a restaurant with a bar server or a bartender who communicates, converses, and serves a table for periods that could last hours. Or a bartender who listens to a person laying out the challenges of their lives and lends a sympathetic ear. I did that. I was a bartender. Let you know an industry secret. The bartender usually doesn't really care, and the stripper doesn't really have a crush on you. But all the same, throw your tips out there, guys. They're doing something above and beyond just serving you a drink or offering a lap dance or whatever else. A tour guide, spends an afternoon showing sights and narrating behind him. A cab driver, conversation online, on a ride, lends tips for local attractions. You see the theme, though, right? A tip is for interaction, and only when the interaction goes above and beyond the basic service. Tipping is the ultimate form of merit pay. I mean, the consumer's in full control. You can directly influence the compensation of the person who is offering the service and incentivizes the worker to do as good a job as possible. When I owned a pub, it was easy to see which servers and bartenders gave the best services. I mean, some consistently brought in as much as 20 to 30% more in tips than other workers. And the formula is pretty simple. Just be friendly, attentive, and polite. Harder than one would think with some servers, though, especially as an owner, you find out. But it gave me, as an owner, a visible measure of who gave the customers the best service. And it ensured, I, of course, worked harder to make sure those servers got as many prime shifts as possible. The customers won, the ambitious servers won, and I, as an owner, won. Well, many restaurants, they've tried to go with tip-free models, and it always fails. Earl's in Calgary tried it a few years ago, and it only lasted a few months. I mean, while they paid a much bigger hourly rate to the servers to compensate for the lack of tips, the ambitious servers said to hell with this, and they quit and went to restaurants where they could earn tips. They wanted to get the better, work harder, and make the money. The servers who remained, of course, were those who preferred to just sit about and take an hourly wage. So service levels went down while the prices shot up. The restaurant had to return to the old way and fast because the consumers, of course, fled. People like to point out tipping isn't the standard in some other countries, and that's true. But in my travel experience, I found that the service drops as well. And I was in Australia a while back, for example, and unless you're in a formal and expensive restaurant, well, you have to go to a window, order, and pay, and then get a little number, and then you sit at their table. Then they call your number, and you go and get your food. Meanwhile, you go to another lineup, and you go and you pay, and you get your drink. And if you drink multiple drinks, you got to go multiple times. and the prices are high. You know what? I'd rather tip and have table service. That's why I went out. I really missed that while I was down there. If I'm going to do nothing but self-service, I might as well just get takeout and go home. The only way to change the trend in tipping for consumers, though, is you've got to put your feet and your wallets down on the issue. Refuse to tip for retail services and only tip in the traditional industries. We can't get the government in on banning tipping, and it's well out of their role anyway. Who are they to tell me who I can give my own money to? We have let the practice of tipping spread too far, but it's up to us to bring it back where it belongs. And I'm going to check myself before habitually tipping from here on in. And yes, I sure as hell won't be spending $16 on a loaf of sourdough bread as well. So last week was a good learning week for me, guys.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. To become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited access.